In the world of Quinnipiac basketball, one team finds themselves on top of the MAC world, while the other finds themselves at the bottom. The men's ice hockey team moves on to the quarterfinal rounds of the ECAC tournament after sweeping Brown. And finally, a soundbite with ESPN college basketball analyst Jay Billis. This is Bobcat Breakdown. Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of Bobcat Breakdown. I'm Matt McAuliffe and alongside of me I have a fresh squad from Albany, New York in Dylan Fearon and Josh Silverman. Guys, welcome.
It was a long 5 days, but it was exciting, and I gotta tell you, I missed Chartwell's. I never thought I'd say it, but you can only have so much arena food.
I think you're crazy. The arena food was so much better than Chartwell's, but I'm definitely happy to be back.
Well, fellas, let's get right into the action. The women's basketball team was crowned MAC champions after defeating the Rider Broncs by a score of 81-73 Monday night in Albany. So guys, thoughts on the MAC championship game?
It wasn't just the MAC championship game. They really wanted to beat Iona, and they got him in the semifinals. That was their goal all season long, to get back to the MAC tournament, defeat Iona, get their revenge, and that's what they did. And what I really found interesting was that they fell behind in every game in the MAC tournament, and they still prevailed and got the W. You saw, it's just like the Patriots, do your job. These guys were all about team first mentality. Everything's about the team. It's not about the individual. What can you do to help the team out and get that one common goal, which is a championship? And that's what they did every single game. They fell behind early. They weren't hitting shots in games. But when it came down to it in the fourth quarter, Jen Fay would knock down a couple threes. Sarah Schoen would get a couple buckets to go. And then, of course, you know, the main cast of characters of Aaron McClure in that ISO set, Paul Stroutmanet, Carly Fabry. I mean, all these guys contributed to the championship. It wasn't just one player. Aaron McClure did drop 28 in the championship game, and Ali Martucci was the tournament MVP. But it was all about the team. They all contributed, and it was phenomenal to watch.
What are my thoughts? Aaron McClure, in my mind, had the best performance I've seen in a Bobcat uniform since I've been here. Trisha Fabry said it best. I said, Trish, after the game, what's one word to describe Aaron McClure? I would have said beast, because I thought that was just an outstanding performance. She said, I'll give you a phrase. She was not going to let us lose today. 28 points, a career high. It's not just being the best player on the court, it's being the best player when it matters. Getting 28 points when it matters. She wasn't going to let them lose that game. She wasn't going to let them lose any game in the tournament. Like Dylan said, their tenacity showed. They came back in every game they had to in the tournament. And it's a team. It starts at the top with Trisha Fabry and Matt McGivray, and it goes all the way to the bottom.
So you guys speak so highly of this women's team and how they did in Albany. Can you call this team a dynasty?
Not yet, but it's becoming a dynasty.
What?
It's becoming, no, how can you call that a dynasty? They've won 3 championships in 5 years. That's not a dynasty yet. You look at Marist and the MAC.
60%, right?
Well, first of all, one was in the NEC and then 2 in the MAC. But if you look at it,
so you're faulting them for being in the NEC. Okay, all right, I'll let you go.
Let me talk. Look at Marist and the MAC. They won 9 straight MAC championships. That's a dynasty when you consistently win every single year and no one can touch you. But when you win 3 out of 5, when you lost to Iona last year by 16, you lost to Marist 3 years ago, it's not a dynasty. When you consistently win every single year and there's no doubt in anyone's mind that you will win the championship, that is a dynasty. Look at UConn. Look at the UCLA men.
Oh, we're comparing them to UConn?
That's a dynasty. How is this I love to hear this. How is this a dynasty? Tell me.
I can go now?
Go.
Okay. 3 out of 5, Dylan. You bring up loss last year. Okay, that's a good argument against the dynasty. However, if Maria Napolitano played in that game, they were going to win that game.
And they lost. So how is it a dynasty?
It's a dynasty because of the way they're winning. Dylan,
what are you talking about?
They went undefeated in the conference 2 years ago. They won 17 games the last 3 years ago, I'm sorry. 17 wins the last 2 seasons, Dylan. How is that not a dynasty to win 3 out of 5, to advance to the NCAA tournament, which is the goal of every season?
I'm
3 out of 5 times.
It's
I'm not
becoming
taking
a
anything away
dynasty.
from
It's not
Marist,
a dynasty.
UConn, or any of those.
It will be a dynasty in a couple of years. When you look at Aaron McClure, Paul Stroutmanet are just sophomores. When you look at Jen Fay, it's just a redshirt sophomore, and those 3 players are coming back for the next 2 years, and they will probably win the MAC championship in the next 2 years, then it will be a dynasty. But 3 out of 5 is not a dynasty in my eyes yet. You look at Marist, won 9 straight MAC championships. That is a dynasty.
right, Maris.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
So, fellas, they are now on to the NCAA tournament, the national tournament, and throughout the MAC tournament, they had their slow starts, and then in the second half, they would kind of bounce back. So, can they win a tournament game with these slow starts?
I'll let you take this one first, Josh. I think you need this one.
Okay. No, they cannot. It's one thing to do it against Canisius, and Iona and Ryder's very impressive, but you can't. You can't start slow and shoot under 30% and still win a game, especially when you're going in, I think, at most a 12 seed, even though I don't think they will be a 12 seed, probably 13 or 14. I don't think they'll be able to overcome slow starts. I don't even know if they'll be able to win if they get to a hot start, but you can't put yourself in that hole in the NCAA tournament. You just can't do it.
I completely agree. I mean, you look at the leads that they were, how much they were down early in games in the MAC tournament. 18-11 against Canisius, they come back and win, obviously. 28-18 against Iona, and 17-7 against Ryder. If you're playing teams, like Josh said, if you're a 13 seed, probably you're playing, the top 16 to 20 teams in the country. There's no way you can fall down that early and have a chance at winning. If anything, you have to break the game down into 10 4-minute games and hope and pray you win the first 3 or 4 and you're in position to win or at least come close to winning. But if you fall behind 10 in the first quarter, there's no way you're winning. Look at how they played against Oklahoma 2 years ago. Fell behind early, Oklahoma had every shot, and they ended up losing by, I don't even know how much, 30, 40, however much it was. If they fall behind early, there's no shot. But if they can break it down into 10 4-minute games and somehow win the first 2 or 3, then they have somewhat of a shot. But unless they jump out to an early lead, there's no way they win.
Really quick, just mentioning the Michigan State game from earlier this season, a game where they didn't
A home game,
and they didn't play their best ball this season. I look at a game like that where they lost by 20. It's just you can't get off to a slow start.
Correct.
So, Coach Fabry, she's done a fantastic job. She is now a MAC champion once again. Boys, is she the best coach that this program has seen?
Absolutely. That this program has ever seen?
Sure.
Absolutely the best the program has ever seen. I think she's one of the best coaches on campus, if not the best coaches on campus. You look at the resume that she's compiled, it's not a dynasty, but she has certainly put together a tremendous resume over the last 5 years. And you look at her staff, I have to give credit to the staff. The staff has been phenomenal with Mount McGilvery the last 7 years, Danielle Brennan the last 6 years, and Destiny Hughes and Talia Marks McCall. Tremendous staff so far. In this tenure, the core of this staff. You look at Mount McGilvery, goes out and recruits top players. You look at top players that he's gotten, like Jen Fay, Aaron McClure, Paul Straumanet, Sarah Shu, and players like that. Danielle Brennan, with the scouting that she did in the MAC tournament to get them 3 wins, has been phenomenal. And the additions of Destiny Hughes and Talia Marks McCall have been very, very valuable to Tricia Fabry. She's one of the best coaches, if not the best coach on this campus.
Dylan, I agree with you 100%. Like I said, the team has won 3 out of 5 MAC championships. Not MAC championships because one was with the NEC, but 3 Coach of the Year awards. One was with the NEC, 2 in the MAC. But to the point about the best coach on campus, I don't know how you compare her to someone like Becca Main or Rand Pecknold. The sports are just so different, and the staffs are so different. Like you mentioned, I feel like every press conference, Trish thanked Mountain McGilvery and all of her coaches because it really is. She said they work so hard, and they do work so hard, and it pays off. But I don't know how you go against other coaches. It's just very hard to do.
It also speaks to the staff and to Tricia Fabry when she has no players on the All-MAC first team the last 2 years and just 1 in the last 3 years. So if you're not going to award the players anything and credit the players so much, it's got to be the coaching, you would think, correct?
It has to be. And one postseason award, which was MAC Rookie of the Year, which was Aaron McClure. I don't understand the process, Dylan.
The coaching has very impressive resumes indeed, but coming up, we will talk about how men's basketball will deal with their most recent loss, plus a soundbite from ESPN college basketball analyst Jay Billis. You won't want to miss any of it, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown.
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown.
And welcome into Studio 125.
So what? If you score 40 points in a basketball game, we all know you play Quinnipiac intramurals. We all know you love to shoot the rock.
Well, if you think that's the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, what I'm about to say, I guess, is going to be pretty ridiculous in your book. But I'm going to say, yes, there is a controversy.
Line, getting ready to punch the ball as it lands right in front of another Monument player.
Coming up on hashtag that.
We
are your source for Quinnipiac's entertainment news.
Hello, Quinnipiac hockey fans, and welcome to the Neutral Zone.
Definitely St. Lawrence, and I think you're going to see the test coming up real soon.
They might be having a bit of an adjustment issue without that CBS line, but don't count them out.
At High Point Solutions Arena in Game 2 of Quinnipiac vs. Northeastern Series.
Welcome back, everyone. So glad that you stuck with us. Guys, Tom Moore was relieved of his duties as the head coach of the men's basketball team today. Thoughts on the decision?
Look, I like Tom Moore. And I think Tom Moore can coach at the Division I level and get to the NCAA tournament. But it's not going to happen at Quinnipiac. Clearly, he's been fired. I don't think it ever was going to happen at Quinnipiac. And I think Greg Amodio, the athletic director, his hands are tied when Tom Moore goes 34-57 in the last 3 years and 19-42 in the last 2 years, and in 10 years has never made an NCAA tournament. And Greg Amodio was brought into Quinnipiac to make men's basketball a winner. When you look at women's basketball, whose transition from the NEC to the MAC was as smooth as can be, and men's basketball has struggled in the last 3 years, Greg Amodio's hands are absolutely tied. When you are 19-42 in the last 2 years, you only get 19 wins in 2 years. It was near embarrassing that the amount of losses that they suffered the last 2 seasons. When you have 21 losses in each of the last 2 years, Greg Amodio's hands were absolutely tied in this situation. He had to get rid of Tom Moore. A change has to be made. But at the same time, we do have to address the fact that Tom Moore was a little bit unlucky. Okay? 3 years ago, has a great team. Would have easily won the NEC in their first year in the MAC. Umar Shannon goes down in the last home game of the season, and Quinnipiac loses in the semifinals. The next year, Zayed Hurst, Usman Drame, Justin Harris, and Evan Conti are the core on that team. And they had brought in Giovanni McLean to be the point guard of that team. He is ineligible with transcript fraud, cannot play, and that team goes 15-15. Then last year, 10-21, an awful year. Chase Daniels was injured a little bit, but no real excuses there. And then this year, Donovan Smith goes down, and they only finished 10-21. So there has been a little bit of bad luck, but what team doesn't go through some stuff like that? Those are my thoughts. He had to go, a change had to be made, but there has been some unlucky stuff there.
Josh. Dylan, you covered this team for 4 years. I've been around it for 2, not as extensive as you have, but it's hard for me to talk poorly about a man that treated the student media organization so well. He shook all of our hands after they fell in the MAC tournament. But at the end of the day, and I hate this expression, but it is true, at the end of the day, you are what your record says. And great coaches get fired. You mentioned Patriots before, and I'm not comparing him to Bill Belichick. I'm not comparing him to Bill Belichick. But Bill Belichick got fired. Tom Landry got fired. Great coaches get fired. Is he a great coach? No. Obviously, if he was a phenomenal coach, he would have brought them and overcome these difficulties. But there is a part of it that is unlucky, and you're just not going to win everywhere you go. I think he could get back to the MAC one day or a conference like it. I don't think he'll be out of coaching, but it just wasn't going to happen here. 0-3 in the last 3 years in the MAC tournament. It was time for a change, because if the change wasn't this year, you go into the season next year with Mikey and Peter Kiss as sophomores. Let's say they get a bye. Let's say they get the 5th seed. We get the 5th seed, and they win one game, and then they lose in the semifinals. Is that the point where you say, okay, he did enough, he didn't do enough? It gets murky as the freshmen get older.
Look, you mentioned the student media stuff, and he is a great person. From everything I've heard, he's a tremendous person. At the end of the day, this is a results-driven business, and that's exactly what he told me after the loss against Niagara. It's a results-driven business. You have to win. And he hasn't won. And so Greg Amodio was forced to fire him, in my opinion, because he has been brought in to make basketball an immediate winner. And when both hockeys are successful and when women's basketball has made the transition so smooth and men's basketball hasn't, his hands were tied in the situation.
So, fellas, again, it's an unfortunate event. And obviously the players are shook. So what would be the next step for this team?
Well, the next step is hiring a new coach. And I think there is a short list so far of the possible candidates to replace Tom Moore. And the first would be Jared Grasso, who is the associate head coach of Iona College, who has been to now, after this NCAA tournament, will be to 4 NCAA tournaments in the last 7 years, has won MAC championships with Iona, has been recruiting for Iona the past couple of years, and has brought Connecticut kids to Iona instead of going to Quinnipiac and Fairfield. So he's taking Connecticut kids, and brought him to Iona instead of these places in state. He played at Quinnipiac. He's in the Hall of Fame. He was a great basketball player here. I think it makes perfect sense for him to be the next head coach following Tom Moore. And the next thing after that would be to make sure players don't transfer. You have to deal with recruits coming in next year, already committed players and things like that. So those are the next two things that have to happen here.
Yeah, anytime a coach gets fired or there's a transition, there's going to be turnover. I don't know if it's going to pour into next season. We'll have to wait and see about that. But I think this is a very enticing job. The facilities here are great. You get a coach, Peter Kiss and Mikey Dixon, who Tom Moore said are two of the top 15 players, or will be two in the top 15 players in the conference. I think it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
So you mentioned Dixon and Kiss in your last answer, Josh, and these two were very talented freshmen. Mikey Dixon, Rookie of the Year in the MAC. Can these two make this Quinnipiac team contenders?
Josh, what do you got?
I say 100%. I think they will be contenders. I think, depending on what happens, because now that we know for sure that Tom Moore is out, it's going to be really interesting to see how they start this season, if they're able to get right back on track, if maybe Peter and Mikey, maybe their progression slows down a little bit. But I think they will be at least 100% of the top 7, maybe top 5, get a bye. I see them making Quinnipiac a contender this year, maybe, if not, definitely the next 2 years.
I think next year they'll be successful, more successful than they were this year, but you have to look at the fact that Quinnipiac's going to need a dominant big, and they lose Donovan Smith. Chase Daniels will be a senior, but he hasn't been that amazing this season. You need that guard, you need that big man to go with your two really good guards in order to be successful in this league. They will be better next year because you look at a lot of teams are losing guys, and that was a problem this year. There were so many teams that were senior laden, unlike Quinnipiac, like a Monmouth, like a Siena, like Iona had a couple seniors. And so with those teams having to rebuild and losing a lot of those seniors, and Quinnipiac pretty much losing no one of a huge magnitude, they will be more successful, but it will take a couple years to rebuild this team.
So, fellas, let's jump towards the national tournament now. We have ESPN college basketball analyst Jay Billis spoke with our very own Ryan Chichester on how he feels about Iona's potential.
So you've seen both teams play. What do you think they can do in the tournament? Could they make any noise against a 4 or 5 seed?
You talking about either team, or?
Yeah, either Siena or Iona.
Yeah, I think they can. Both these teams are capable, and they've got good players, and both teams have players that are capable of playing at sort of a higher Power 5 level. But you get against some of the Power 5 teams and the higher seeds. You're going against a lot of times bigger guys, and that's really the issue, is more size. So you're going to have to do something special, like hit shots. And but these are two really well-coached teams, and Iona's been there before, and they've been in this championship game before. 6 of the last 7 years, 5 in a row. So they're used to it, and operating under pressure. If you can win in this kind of environment, you can win in the NCAA tournament.
It's not.
So, fellas, can Iona win a game in the national tournament?
I don't think so, Josh. Iona's probably going to be a 15 seed. It's unfortunate for the MAC that Monmouth lost in the semifinals to Siena, because Monmouth would have represented the MAC really well. They had a shot to take down a big team like they had last year in the regular season, like they had this year against Memphis.
And an impressive bench celebration.
Of course, and the bench mob. But I think Iona's going to be a 15 seed. You look at Joel and Hardy's bracketology, they're going to play Kentucky, Baylor, Oregon, Louisville, teams like that. And Iona's not predicated on defense. It's more offensively run. And they let up 94 points against Iowa State last year in the tournament when they were a 13. And so I think as a 15 going up against Kentucky, they have no shot. Going up against Oregon, Baylor, Louisville, teams like that, they have absolutely no shot because they just don't play that great of defense.
Dylan, I 100% agree with you. I think it would have been great for the MAC, great for people to watch Justin Robinson play. He was a pleasure to watch while we were up there in MAC. Great for them to experience the King Rice press conference. I thought he did a great job of congratulating Siena and just had so much class after they lost to them. I think it's unfortunate that Iona will be representing the MAC because I don't think they will do as well. I think Monmouth would have been exciting, probably would have gotten a win. I don't see Iona winning.
At the same time, though, that's four NCAA tournaments in 7 years. Who knows, maybe they're due for a win. Tim Cluse is their coach. He's a great coach.
Fellas, thank you for joining me on the desk today.
Coming
up next, I have new faces that will join me on the desk, and we will discuss the future of the men's ice hockey team in the ECAC playoffs. Plus, our favorite segment, the Game of the Week, is also coming up. Don't bail on us now, because you won't want to miss this.
It's 9:30 Eastern, and you know what that means. Sports Pause is on the air.
Ball played up the middle. Iman Whalen with a little cheat off the pipe. Preseason just boils down to going after another national championship and not necessarily focusing on the one before.
And
MJ, and it's time for our favorite part of the show. It's the top 5 plays of the week, brought to you by B&D Deli, home of the Q-Dog.
Let's talk about the first play you want to break down.
Yeah, let's break it down right away.
But the one name I'm going to throw out there is a freshman, Mika Maples.
Hello, Quinnipiac hockey fans, and welcome to the Neutral Zone.
Definitely St. Lawrence, and I think you're going to see the test coming up real soon.
They might be having a bit of an adjustment issue without that CBS line, but don't count them out.
At High Point Solutions Arena in Game 2 of Quinnipiac vs. Northeastern Series.
All this and more.
Coming up on the Q30 Newscast.
The Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team swept the Brown Bears last weekend, moving on to the quarterfinals of the tournament. Quinnipiac dominated both games of the series. As Game 1, they won by a score of 6-1, and in Game 2, won by a score of 5-1. Our beat reporters MJ Baird and Kyle Lavasser had your recap.
The last Quinnipiac ice hockey or basketball game has been played here in the 2016-2017 season at the TD Bank Sports Center. Hello, everyone, and welcome into The Rebound, presented by Q30 Sports. My name's MJ Baird. Alongside me today is Kyle Lavasser, a Quinnipiac men's ice hockey beat reporter. Kyle, Quinnipiac just advanced to the next round of the ECAC tournament, defeating Brown by a final score of 5-1. 2 games was all it took for Quinnipiac to beat Brown this weekend. Kyle, the biggest accomplishment of the weekend, the Quinnipiac senior class, they pick up their 100th career win. What do you have to say?
MJ, first of all, you're going to bring a tear to my eye thinking we're not going to be back here covering any hockey or basketball games. But back to the senior class, I mean, their legacy is just greatness, what they brought to this program. There's only one other program in the country, in North Dakota, that has a senior class with over 100 wins. That's remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Quinnipiac, this senior class too, Kyle, has 20-plus win seasons in all 4 of its seasons here at Quinnipiac. Tommy Schutt weighs in.
You know, there's not really one thing that you can put, say about every single guy. I think just as a group, from our freshman year, we just clicked with each other, and I just look to them like brothers, and I've got their back, and I know that they've got mine, and I think that's really helped, just especially this year, leading the group, the younger guys below us, and everyone's got their own role in that senior group, and we've all played to that role. So.
Thanks, guys. I am now joined by a veteran crew of Tyler Brocious and Kyle Lavasser. Guys, welcome.
Hey.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here, guys. It's playoff time for ECAC hockey. Best time of the year, in my opinion.
Now, guys, take me through the Brown series, and was this a tease? Can they move on? Can they go past where they are right now?
I'll start with this one, Matt. It's tough to say that this is a tease for the playoffs because they're facing Brown, a team that went 4-25-2 overall this entire season and was the worst team in the ECAC. I'll give the Bobcats this. They're on a 5-game winning streak right now, and I think they're playing the best hockey I've seen them play all season. They're averaging 5 goals per game during this winning streak, and they're only allowing 1.6 goals per game over this streak too. So Andrew Shortridge is playing the best hockey he's played all season, and the scorers are getting hot at the right time. But in that series, they played Brown 3 times. They played Yale, average team in the ECAC, and then they played RPI, who's also one of the worst teams in the conference. So it's really tough to say that it's a tease for what's to come, and I think we're going to have a good test seeing Quinnipiac against St. Lawrence this weekend.
I couldn't agree with Kyle more. They're hitting their stride right now, but it'd be different if they came out this weekend, they won 3-2. They had to come from behind, or they won 1-0 and got a chippy goal at the end. They came out and played 120 minutes and dominated, I would say, 118 of them. Absolutely insane what they did this weekend. Andrew Shortridge is hitting his stride, and it's crazy to think that in a year where there's been so many games played that they're hitting their stride right now in the ECAC, but somehow in the playoffs they are. I'm talking got 2-3 different skaters on point streaks. You have a freshman goaltender who's not afraid to get in big guys' faces, whether anywhere it is, and his team's buying into that. And I think when you have a confidence and a swagger and a goaltender like Shortridge does right now, you have defensemen not afraid to lay down and block shots, and you have forwards who are stepping up in Landon Smith, Thomas Aldworth, both riding point streaks right now. You're getting the Cliftons involved. You're in a really, really good recipe to go up there in North Country, make some big noise, and head yourself to Placid for another year.
And I like that you mentioned that, Tyler, about Andrew Shortridge having some swagger out there. I really
awesome.
think confidence is so important come playoff time. I mean,
he's a freshman.
Exactly, he's a freshman. He's riding a winning streak. And Rand Pecknold said after the game, when Quinnipiac was in a little bit of a scoring drought halfway through the year, the players were just gripping the sticks too tight. They weren't really confident, and it just takes a few games like this where they're scoring 5 goals per game to gain that confidence back.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You go off that idea right there. We saw that in so many press conferences where you could tell the players coming in, they are just gassed mentally and emotionally right now. They're coming in, they're focused, they're having fun, the smiles are back, and when you play anything or you do anything with a smile, you're going to do it better, and that's what they're doing right now on the ice.
So, fellas, they're on to the next round. They're off to North Country. How do we feel that this team will do against the St. Lawrence Saints?
I'll start it off. I'll be honest. The 2 games we've seen them in this year, it's kind of a different Bobcats team. They've been outshot. They've been out face-off wins. And, even against that game in Ireland, they had to get the late shootout goal. It goes down as a tie in the points, and Jermaine comes up big. It's a different team now. I mean, at that point when you played both these games against St. Lawrence, you had goalie controversies, you had freshmen who weren't producing. Now think about it, the bowling ball, Alex Whalen producing, Nick Germain, he's becoming a little bit of a sniper on this team. Tanner McMaster back checking like they've been wanting him to do. It's all this stuff. It's almost like someone sat down and said, here, this is what everyone needs to do, and they all have been checking it off the past 4 or 5 games. And it's interesting, SLU, a week off, they didn't play their best hockey going into their little week vacation. That's not a good recipe. And you have the Bobcats, they're on a point streak, winning streak, goalie's hot, confidence. It's going to be a tough matchup, I think, this week, no doubt. I'm talking 3 games, a hard-fought 3 games, but could be fun.
Yeah, this is going to be a struggle, Tyler. I think it's also going to go into 3 games. And what I'm looking for this weekend is goaltending. It's going to be the best goalie in the conference in Kyle Hayden, who has the best save percentage and the best goals against average in the ECAC, against a freshman goalie, but he's riding a hot streak, as we talked about. And Kyle Hayden has just been on fire against Quinnipiac in his career. In the last 4 games in the past 2 years that he's faced Quinnipiac, he's shut them out 3 times. Quinnipiac hasn't scored against Kyle Hayden at all this season, either at home or in Ireland. He even made 37 saves, didn't allow a single goal until the shootout, which didn't even matter for conference standings. So he just seems to turn his game up when he plays Quinnipiac.
So, fellas, maybe it's the goaltending, maybe it's offensive production. What seems to be the X factor for this series?
I'll take this one. I think it's going to be 2 key players going up against Kyle Hayden. One of them, the captain, Connor Clifton.
Sure.
He's the active career postseason leader in points with 13 donning the blue and gold. If you have someone that has that postseason experience, he's playing his last playoff series, or not series, but last playoffs, no matter what, win or lose, he's going to turn his game up. He's not going to want to lose and go out against St. Lawrence without even making Lake Placid. I also have Tanner McMaster. He's riding a hot streak. He has 6 points in his last 3 games. And, he's only 7th on the team in points. But for me, it's the players that are streaking and are hot at the right time versus the players that might be more talented.
It's going to come down to, I think, the power play. And you look at 2 big factors on the power play for the Bobcats. Chase Prisky leads Quinnipiac in power play points, 18 of them this year, 14 of them being assists. It seems like when he touches the puck, it's quickly going to turn into a goal, especially the second half surge he's on. It's downright impressive. Him and Rafferty up there. It's a comfort factor for this Bobcats team. And then I'm going to harp on it again. Landon Smith right now. You've seen him at the beginning of the year, maybe misses a shot wide, misses a shot here. This time, it seems like they're tucking right under the bar. They're pretty goals. He's playing with a swagger. It's awesome to watch. And when you have pretty goals like that, it means that something's clicking. 11 points in the ACAC in his playoff, including 4 goals.
So, fellas, real quick, prediction for the series. What do you got?
I got to take St. Lawrence in 3 games. I think Kyle Hayden's going to be too much.
Tyler?
Somehow, some way, I think this team's too damn gritty. Bobcats in 3.
Now, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for this week's edition of Bobcat Breakdown. Make sure to follow at QBSN and at Q30 Sports on Twitter, and check out our website at QBSN.com and Q30television.com. From all of us behind the scenes and for all of our analysts, I'm Matt McAuliffe. Thanks for watching, and good night, everybody.
Well done.